The movie kicks off by introducing us to two Irish brothers, Connor and Murphy. They're deeply religious, with their own family prayer and everything. In the opening scenes, they're at church on St. Patrick's Day, where the priest gives a sermon about an innocent girl who was stabbed to death in the street while everyone just stood there, doing nothing. The priest believes that this indifference is actually a worse evil than the murder itself. After hearing this, the brothers walk away, clearly moved by the words. Connor and Murphy work in a meatpacking plant, living a pretty peaceful, non-violent life. They do enjoy a good fight now and then, but aside from that, they're just regular guys who are well-liked by their neighbors and have plenty of friends. The bartender at their local spot, Doc, is a big supporter of theirs, always looking out for them. But things take a turn when Doc has some bad news for them. He tells them that the Russian Mafia is taking over the neighborhood and that they're going to shut down his bar. Doc has 1 week left before his lease expires, but on St. Patrick's Day, a group of Russian thugs shows up at the bar to throw him out. One of the Russians, Ivan, tells a guy named Rocco to stay behind while the others are sent away. Connor and Murphy try to settle things peacefully, but the Russian mobster isn't having it. The next day, the police find the bodies of the thugs in an alley near the bar. FBI Special Agent Paul Smecker shows up to investigate, but first he listens to Detective Greenleaf's wild theory about the murders. Greenleaf's convinced it was some huge black guy who did the killing, but Smecker doesn't buy it. He sends Greenleaf off to fetch him a coffee while he works through the details himself. Smecker quickly figures out that one of the thugs was killed with a toilet, and the other had a broken back. He also traces the toilet back to the brothers' apartment. In addition, he finds the guns and realizes only 2 shots were fired, which points to this being something personal, not a gang war. The officers go to the brothers' place and confirm the bathroom is missing a toilet, leaving Greenleaf still insisting that a giant man was involved. Smecker's not having any of it though. Meanwhile, the brothers are in the hospital beaten up pretty badly. They're about to turn themselves in, but Doc comes to visit and lets them know that Smecker is looking into the deaths of the thugs. The brothers aren't scared at all. In fact, they want to explain that they were just defending themselves. They give Doc the money and guns they found on the thugs, asking him to hold on to them while they stay in the hospital. At the police station, Smecker is furious because someone leaked this story to the press, and now the whole town thinks the brothers are heroes. He still insists they need to be caught though. Not long after, Connor and Murphy show up at the station, looking like they've just come back from the dead. Smecker decides to question them privately and lets them know he recorded everything. The brothers agree to tell the truth, but they don't mention anything about the guns or the money. Back at the bar, Ivan tells everyone to leave, except for Rocco. Rocco, being super drunk, starts insulting Ivan, which leads to a punch in the face. This is when the brothers and their friends decide to step in and take matters into their own hands. They beat up the thugs, tie one of them to a table, set his rear end on fire, and throw their bodies out into the street. The next day, the thugs return to the brothers' apartment to get revenge. They're patched up with bandages, meaning the brothers took care of their wounds after the beating. Ivan apologizes to Connor, but vows to kill him after taking out Murphy. But before that can happen, Connor has a major freakout, snatches the toilet from the floor, runs up to the roof, and throws it right at Ivan's head. He then jumps on the other thug and saves his brother. After some more fighting, Connor grabs the money and guns, and they head back to the hospital. Smecker, realizing the brothers were just protecting themselves, decides to let them go, but they ask to stay in the cell for a while because reporters have swarmed the station. An officer tells the press the brothers are innocent and will be released soon. That night, both brothers have a realization. They're done just sitting back while criminals ruin the lives of good people. They decide it's time to take action and get rid of the scum in the city. The next morning, they receive a message on the phone they stole from Ivan and get ready to leave the police station. They discover that the newspapers are all buzzing about them. Connor, who knows Russian, calls the number on Ivan's phone and figures out where the criminals will be gathering that evening. At the same time, we find out that Rocco works for the Italian Mafia, specifically for a boss named Papa Joe. Rocco's clearly nervous when he's sitting in front of Papa Joe, especially since the boss is in a bad mood. Papa Joe asks Rocco to make him laugh, and Rocco manages to crack a joke that gets the boss laughing. Papa Joe always calls him funny man after that. Before going to deal with the Russian Mafia, Connor and Murphy sell off the jewelry and guns from the thugs to buy some new weapons. Connor insists they take a rope with them, like in spy movies. Murphy thinks it's a ridiculous idea, but eventually agrees. After their visit to Papa Joe, Agent Smecker gets called to the scene of a massacre. When he arrives, he realizes the two gunmen have killed 9 criminals. They even place coins on the victims' eyes, which has religious significance. The next scene shows how it all went down. The brothers sneak through the ventilation system to the mob boss's room. There's a moment where they get tangled up in the rope, creating a mess and causing them to fall through the attic. But the rope saves them, and they start firing at all the thugs in the room. After taking care of the henchmen, they make the mob boss kneel, say a prayer, and shoot him in the head. Then they spot a briefcase with money inside. At some point, there's a knock at the door, and when they open it, they end up throwing the guy on the ground, threatening to kill him. It turns out to be Rocco, and he's all flustered, claiming that Papa Joe sent him to deal with the Russians. Rocco is clearly shaken, confused, and he's not in his right mind, considering that his friends just killed a bunch of people. We then shift over to Agent Smecker, who's starting to think that this massacre is tied to some kind of Mafia turf war. Meanwhile, the brothers head over to Rocco's house to fill him in on their plan to clean up the streets by taking down the criminals. They end up getting drunk and smoking, and that's when Rocco messes around with a gun, accidentally killing his girlfriend's cat. The next day, Rocco and Connor go for a walk, and Connor talks about how he thinks Rocco's boss, Papa Joe, probably ordered his death as a setup. At first, Rocco doesn't buy it, but after some back and forth, Connor and Murphy manage to convince him that he's been played by Papa Joe. Eventually, Rocco storms off, saying he's going to confront his boss. Not long after, Rocco comes back to the apartment, panicked, saying that everyone knew he was going to be killed. That sent him into a rage, and he ended up killing everyone at Papa Joe's bar. The scene plays out showing how Rocco walked in and took out a couple of goons and the bartender before calming down and suggesting they go after Vincenzo, Papa Joe's right-hand man. One night, the 3 of them follow Vincenzo to a strip club, and while he's in the middle of something shady, they take him out. Smecker catches wind of the murder and starts investigating, but he can't make sense of the fact that the strip club was a target. He also discovers that 2 random street criminals were killed in the same place, which means this can't be a mob war like he thought. Things get even messier when Smecker finds out about the killings at Papa Joe's bar, and he's totally lost. The only thing tying all these murders together is that the victims were all bad people. Meanwhile, Papa Joe, realizing he's being hunted, decides to bring in a hitman, someone notorious for being ruthless, Il Duce, who's been locked up for years. The plan is to stop Rocco before he spills the beans on the entire family or takes them out one by one. Eventually, Illinois Duce gets released, and Rocco shares with the brothers about another hitman they need to take down. This guy's a deadbeat assassin who's been running wild, and Rocco's got a plan to find him at his poker game. The brothers agree to join him, and the trio heads to the hitman's place in a minivan. They sneak into the house, and as the action unfolds, we get a moment where the hitman is hanging out in the bathroom, totally unaware. When he finally comes out, things get intense, and Rocco ends up dealing with him, thanks to a golf ball thrown his way. However, just as they're about to leave, Illinois Duce shows up and opens fire, though he doesn't manage to kill any of them. Rocco gets hurt and loses a finger, but they all survive. Later, Smecker arrives at the scene, and his frustration grows as he tries to piece together who's behind all of these crimes. When he finds Rocco's finger, he finally starts putting the puzzle together. As the brothers and Rocco watch the news, they realize Smecker's investigation is only getting stronger. Rocco suggests that they should take him out, but the brothers are against it, arguing that Smecker's a good guy. That night, Smecker connects the dots in his mind about the 2 brothers cleaning up the city and Rocco's involvement. Now, Smecker has to choose: arrest the brothers and put an end to their vigilante mission, or look the other way and let them continue their crusade. Conflicted, Smecker heads to a gay bar near the church to drink away his feelings. The next day, the brothers go to the church, and Rocco follows them there. Smecker is contemplating confessing, but Rocco's ready to end it for him. Connor steps in and convinces the priest to ask some questions, and it's in this moment that Connor realizes Smecker is on their side. Smecker promises to help them, but as he leaves, the brothers call him for assistance with the looming danger ahead. They're heading to Papa Joe's house, where a bunch of henchmen are waiting. Smecker, aware of the trap, heads there to lend a hand. When the brothers try to break into the house, they're caught, beaten, and tied up. Meanwhile, Papa Joe decides to make an example of Rocco and kills him. The brothers are left in shock. But things aren't over yet. Smecker shows up at Papa Joe's house, disguised as a woman. He lures a guard into the bathroom and takes him out with a quick strike. After that, he kills another henchman. With things getting chaotic, the brothers manage to break free, and they kill another henchman in the process. They pause for a moment to say a prayer for their fallen friend, Rocco. Just then, Illinois Duce enters the scene, and when he hears the brothers' family prayer, he stops and joins in. It's revealed that Il Duce is actually their long-lost father. He's the one who taught them that prayer when they were kids. With this, the trio decides to team up to rid the city of its criminals once and for all. Months later, Papa Joe's trial is underway, and despite all the evidence stacking up against him, reporters are betting he'll be acquitted. But just when the trial's about to go down, the brothers, along with Il Duce and Smecker, infiltrate the courtroom. They make a bold statement about their mission to destroy evil, say their prayer one last time, and then shoot Papa Joe in the back of the head, taking him down for good. The media dubs them the Saints, but as the film ends, we see a bunch of interviews with Boston residents who are divided. Some think the Saints are heroes, while others aren't so sure. The question remains, are they truly good, or are they just another brand of evil? And that's all for today's video. Thanks for watching.